What if one of the world's first super civilizations just vanished? Without a war, without a warning, and without even a goodbye note. No epic battle, no fire, not even a single statue tipping over in dramatic fashion. I'm talking about a place where people had working toilets before the Romans figured out plumbing. A civilization that built perfectly organized cities more than 4,000 years ago, and then just disappeared. Welcome to the Indus River Valley civilization. Imagine if the ancient world had a superhero, and that superhero ghosted us. In this video, we're diving into everything. Who they were, what they built, how they lived, why they might have vanished, and how they're still influencing life today. It's the ancient mystery with the least drama, and somehow the most intrigue. Let's begin. Act 1. A civilization too good to be true. Let's set the stage. It's around 2600 BCE. In Egypt, they're stacking blocks into pyramids. In Mesopotamia, they're inventing taxes and writing epic poetry. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, modern-day Pakistan and northwest India, there's something quietly extraordinary happening. Cities are rising. But not random clusters of huts. These are full-blown urban centers, laid out on a grid with wide streets, complex drainage, and massive public bathhouses. Places like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro had everything you'd expect in a modern city. Multi-story buildings, standardized bricks, covered sewage systems, and wells built right into homes. It's like they were running the world's first public works department, and it was shockingly efficient. And cleanliness? That was practically a national obsession. These people didn't just build bathrooms. They prioritized sanitation on a level some modern cities still haven't figured out. In short, while most of the ancient world was experimenting with basic civilization, the Indus Valley people were already pushing version 2.0. Act 2. The script we still can't crack. Let's talk about their biggest mystery, their writing system. They left behind hundreds of small seals and tablets, with markings that clearly look like writing. You'll see symbols of animals, people, and what appear to be a series of distinct characters arranged in patterns. But here's the twist. No one can read it. We've tried everything. Linguists, historians, and AI programs have attempted to decipher the script, but there's no breakthrough. There's no translation, no bilingual text, and no obvious structure. Some believe the script is a full language, possibly an ancestor of today's Dravidian languages spoken in southern India. Others think it might have been more like symbols used for trade or identification, similar to barcodes or company logos. But until we find a longer text or a translation key, we're left guessing. This means we don't know what they called themselves. We don't know their myths, their laws, or even if they had a king. All we have are seals and inscriptions that look meaningful, but remain silent. It's like discovering someone's diary and realizing it's written in a code no one can break. Act 3. A different kind of civilization. Most ancient civilizations, think Egypt, Mesopotamia, China, loved to show off. Big palaces, gigantic statues, tombs filled with gold and curses. But not the Indus Valley. We found no palaces, no obvious royal tombs, and no massive temples. No carvings declaring, "All hail King so-and-so." No war monuments. In fact, we haven't even found much in the way of weapons. Some scholars believe this was a sign of an egalitarian society. Instead of centralized power, decisions may have been made communally, or leadership may have rotated. Urban planning seems to have followed the same blueprint across different cities. suggesting a shared system rather than a single ruling elite. This challenges how we think about ancient power. Most civilizations we study rise and fall on the back of kings, generals, and empires. But the Indus Valley seems to have thrived without centralized authority, or at least without shouting about it. Imagine a world where nobody named buildings after themselves. Strange, right? Act 4. How we found it by accident. Here's another plot twist. We didn't even know this civilization existed until the 1920s. British archaeologists working in what was then British India were surveying a mound near a railway project in the Punjab region. They thought it was a medieval ruin. What they found instead was the ancient city of Harappa. Soon after, another site was uncovered, Mohenjo-Daro. It was even more impressive, with streets, homes, public baths, and a layout that felt almost modern. This discovery forced historians to rethink everything. This wasn't a fringe culture. It was one of the major Bronze Age civilizations, as important as Mesopotamia and Egypt, but completely forgotten for thousands of years. Over time, archaeologists uncovered more than 1,000 Indus sites, stretching from Afghanistan to Western India. It was one of the largest ancient civilizations by land area, and somehow, one of the quietest. Act 5. So, what happened to them? Now we arrive at the biggest question. How did it all disappear? Around 1900 BCE, the cities began to decline. Trade routes broke down. The writing stopped. The big cities were abandoned. People moved into smaller villages, and eventually, the civilization faded from view. There was no big war, no dramatic invasion, no smoking crater, just a slow unraveling. So what caused it? Let's explore the theories. Theory 1. Climate change. Recent geological studies show that the monsoon rains began to weaken around the time the Indus cities declined. Rivers dried up or changed course. The once fertile farmland became less productive. And remember, this was a river-based civilization. No river, no farming. No farming, no cities. It's that simple. One particular river, the Gagga-Hakra, believed by some to be the legendary Saraswati River, may have completely dried up. When a civilization depends on its water source, environmental collapse can be the beginning of the end. Theory 2. Urban overload. Another possibility is that the cities became victims of their own success. As populations grew, resources were stretched thin. The infrastructure, once remarkable, may have started to break down. Maybe the sanitation systems failed. Maybe food became scarce. Or maybe life in the city just got too hard and people moved back to rural life. It wasn't so much a fall as it was a migration. A slow, peaceful decentralization. Theory 3. Invasion. Probably not. In the early 20th century, many scholars believed the Indo-Aryans, nomadic people from Central Asia, invaded and destroyed the Indus cities. But modern evidence doesn't support this. There are no burned buildings, no mass graves, and no signs of widespread violence. More likely, the Indo-Aryans arrived after the cities had already declined and simply moved into the empty spaces. So while they may have influenced what came next, they probably didn't cause the collapse. Act 6. What they left behind. Even though the Indus cities are long gone, their legacy still echoes in surprising ways. Their approach to urban planning influenced later cultures. Their obsession with cleanliness and water use resonates in modern South Asian culture, where bathing and hygiene are still central. Some of their religious symbols, like the yogic figure found on seals, may connect to early forms of Hindu worship. Scholars have drawn parallels between the bull imagery in Indus seals and the sacred status of cows in Indian tradition. Their skills as craftsmen, especially in bead making, pottery, and metalwork, set a standard that lasted long after the cities were gone. And yes, they invented toys. Archaeologists found miniature carts with wheels, clay animals, and even what looks like board games and dice. In other words, they were brilliant, they were peaceful, and they had hobbies. Act 7. The global context. While the Indus was rising and falling, other civilizations were doing their thing. In Egypt, pharaohs were building pyramids and declaring themselves gods. In Mesopotamia, kings were codifying laws and inventing written language. In China, the foundations of dynasties were forming. And in Crete, the Minoans were painting dolphins on their palace walls. But in all these cultures, power came from the top, from kings, priests, or warlords. The Indus Valley was different. If there was centralized power, it wasn't flashy. If they had rulers, they didn't advertise. That quiet sophistication makes the Indus people feel almost modern, focused not on self-glorification, but on systems, balance, and daily life. And that might be the most advanced thing of all. Act 8, the Unsolved Mysteries. So where does that leave us? We still don't know what language they spoke. We don't know what they believed. We don't know how they governed. We don't know how their civilization ended so quietly. And we don't know why no one wrote down their story in a language we can read. For now, the Indus Valley remains a riddle. A peaceful, organized, brilliantly engineered riddle. Final thoughts. The polite ghost of history. The Indus Valley civilization didn't go out with a bang. It left without causing a scene. No epic battles, no conquest, just a fade out. And maybe that's the most profound thing about them. In a world where most civilizations demanded to be remembered, the Indus people seemed content just to exist, efficiently, beautifully, and quietly. Their silence is the mystery, but it's also their message. Sometimes the most powerful legacy isn't carved in stone. It's built into the brickwork of a city that works. If this video gave you new respect for ancient plumbing, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives into ancient history, and leave a comment telling us what you think happened to the Indus Valley people. Thanks for watching, and remember, if your city doesn't have drainage, it's not ancient, it's just unprepared.